Hello, and welcome back to Voices of the Great War. I'm Liz Watson. Today we're going to be beginning a new series of letters, and this one is from the Brown family. Edward, he is the brother, and he is actually located on the front in France in these letters. And so we're going to be hearing some interesting stories from Ed, and he writes these letters home to his brother in Maryland, who's named William. Our very first letter in this series is an undated letter, and that's why I'm choosing to read this one first. And we can see our letter here, and it was written in pencil, and it's pretty faded, as you can see. So I did have a little bit of difficulty copying it down, but here is Ed's letter to his brother William in Maryland. Dear brother, your letter arrived last Wednesday and was very glad to hear from you. Would have answered it at an earlier date, but moved to the front again, causing me to await a more appropriate time. I also received your papers, Collier's, and the little box, which surely arrived in grand shape. This is a very quiet sector, our only excitement being the fights between the airplanes and anti-aircraft guns. And that in fact doesn't amount to very much. Yesterday was a splendid day for flying, and it seems the Boche were pretty well aware of the fact. They flew over us, only high and out of range of the guns. One of them got a little bold, and I just happened to see him brought down. Once in a while, they throw a few shells over, but they don't amount to anything much. We have a guard on at night, standing 3-hour shifts to answer the phone and alarm us in case of a gas attack. The alarm is a big bell outside of our hole. We had our first thunder and lightning storm last night, and as a result, it has turned dreadfully cooler today. It is very, very disagreeable outdoors at this time, and quite a change from yesterday, which was a beautiful day. I am only hoping this rainy weather will cease so we can get more acquainted with Old Sal. Everything is turning green, and it looks pretty to see trees blooming and the grass so green once again. Some of the places remind me of a big rug of velvet. I will endeavor to send you a copy of the official organ of the A.E.F. in the near future. Give my best regards to Florence, the children, and all my friends. Hoping this finds you enjoying dandy health, and with sincerest regards, your brother, Edward Brown, 167th Infantry, 42nd Division, A.E.F. So, from Ed's letter, we learn a few things. We learn that he's part of the 167th Infantry, which is part of the 42nd, and that's the Rainbow Division, and that is the same division, and the 167. Odo Eckert, in one of our previous series, was also part of the 167th in the Rainbow Division. So it'd be interesting to know if maybe they knew one another. Also, in Ed's letter, he talks about a couple of things. He mentions Old Sal. I'm not sure exactly what he was referring to when he said Old Sal. I did try to do some research, but I wasn't able to find anything concrete. The only thing I can guess, and again it's a guess, is that maybe he was referring to the salient. So the salient in war, it's when, so for example, if the Allies with their line, if they ended up having a bulge, so the line would go and then it would bulge upward into enemy territory, creating a salient, and on either side you could be flanked by the enemy on either side, which made it a very risky position. So I'm not sure if that's what Ed was referring to when he said Old Sal. He also referenced the A.E.F. organ. Now I do know what he was referencing when he said the A.E.F. organ. He was actually talking about the old Stars and Stripes, the newspaper done by the military. So in World War I, they created the Stars and Stripes. Well, the Stars and Stripes was actually done before them, but for World War I, it started its run in February of 1918, and it ran through June of 1919. So what I have alongside of me is actually a book, and it has every single issue of the Stars and Stripes from that run from World War I. And it was a very interesting little paper because it had all sorts of things in it, not just information about what was going on at the front, but it also had, and I want to be kind of careful with it because it's a 100-year-old book, obviously. But so what we can see with our issue here, we can see it does have artwork involved. We do have our stories here off to the side, and also included in our Stars and Stripes, we had advertisements for different things. so we can see our advertisements were here off to the side. And they could be for anything. We have gentleman's hosiery. We have tailors. Razors at the very bottom. So we have all sorts of different things that we could have advertisements for. Another thing that we also had included within our Stars and Stripes were cartoons. We can see we have some cartoons up here as well. And then more advertisements here. And there was some information from home too within the Stars and Stripes. But yeah, very interesting little paper there. And the cool thing about the Stars and Stripes, it was made entirely in France, every part of it. The stories were written in France, it was edited, it was printed, and it was all done right on site in France and issued to the boys. And so a lot of the people who worked on getting this paper out to the boys, they went on to do very amazing things within the publishing industry back home. They became directors of publications, they became editors, illustrators, so they went on to do a lot of good things, the people who made sure that this got out to the boys. Another thing that Ed talked about in his letter was how cold it was. And so judging on or basing the date on the letter on the Stars and Stripes, we know that it began its run in February of 1918. Therefore, his letter had to have been written after February of 1918, which meant that we're approaching spring. So we're still having those spotty days where it's going to be kind of chilly on some days, but beautiful on another day. And he talks about the velvety bed of grass and how he sees trees blooming. So we do know it's heading towards spring. However, still really cold on certain days. So back they had nice jackets, and I have one here, overcoats. And so here is an overcoat. In this overcoat, we can see it's very thick. It's made of wool, just like their uniforms were, and it's very heavy. And we can kind of see it has those two buttons there, and that goes all the way down. The interesting thing is they did choose to redesign the overcoat in length because the boys wanted a more fashionable overcoat, and I actually found that out reading one of the articles in the publication behind me. So yes, they came out with a shorter overcoat because it was more fashionable. But here's our overcoat, and like I said, it's pretty heavy and thick, so I would imagine it would do a pretty reasonable job of keeping them warm. However, when it's raining outside and when the temperature is freezing, even probably a thick woolen overcoat is probably still not gonna be enough, but at least it was something. But yes, very heavy, very thick, and again, made of wool. So this is one of those overcoats. So that is our letter for today, and thank you for joining us. And until next time, I'm Liz Watson, and this is Voices of the Great War.